Hello friends, I am Rob the Dungeon Tutor, or you might see me as Omnisci on the YouTubes. Today I'm answering a question for RPGaDay, the yearly shindig we have where we make videos or posts or blogs or whatever about topics given to us by the fine folks at RPGaDay, and the products therein are designed to inspire or entertain or just be a positive force in the gaming community. So, today is the 13th day, and I hope you're being lucky today. We're dealing with the 13th question. And that question is, how would you change the way you started role-playing games? Started RPGing, which playing role-playing games. And if you saw my prior video, I talked about why I started role-playing games. And earlier on, I did talk about my very first experiences that would have been... what was it? One of the first days of the RPGaDay. Was it the first? No. Third day. When were you first introduced? Sort of. And this question, how would you change the way you started playing? If you did hear my autobiographical about role-playing games, you would know that I started very alone. I didn't actually play role-playing games as much as stumble onto a box, Dungeons and Dragons basic set, and I couldn't play it. I had nobody to show me how, nobody who was willing to play with me. It was just reading. Which I didn't mind. I loved reading, and I loved it even more as a child. But aside from provoking some imagination, it didn't give me a new game. Then when I found a kindred spirit, I was more interested into video games at that time. That carried me through a lot of my preteen years. But then when I found a kindred spirit who was into the role-playing games, and he reminded me, brought up the games like Dungeons and Dragons, and I got into it, and I got the books, a lot of my experience was still pretty darn lonely. I had the one friend who was really into it, and we talked about it a bit, and we tried different things, but again, it's one-on-one, which I've never found to be the most satisfying role-playing game experiences, but they were still fun. And then I found a group, and we played every other week, I think. It didn't feel like it was all that often. Still felt pretty lonely. It was again a lot of fun. It was playing AD&D, so it's really old school, but yeah, it was still kind of a lonely experience because I didn't see these people outside of the game very often to talk about the game or, relive experiences or ask questions. They were just nice folks who let me play along with them, and that was cool. But again, just didn't really have that sense of any more than just playing a part in the game. Until I got to the seminary, my sophomore year of high school. And now I'm living with people. I have all kinds of people around me. My classmates are my roommates. And that's a bit scary for a person who is used to dealing with their classmates only when I'm at school. And now I deal with them while I'm in school, and then when I come back to my room, they're all around me. Which was great for suddenly scratching that itch of having a social group around that I could talk games with, that I could play games whenever I wanted. Because there's always somebody around. Yeah, not all of them were into gaming. Yeah, not all of them were friendly with me even. There were a few who were not so they didn't have a lot of camaraderie with me. But in general, I had a lot of people who I could suddenly talk gaming with, I could play games with, and that was huge for me. Huge. And I do have a great deal of regret for some of the things that happened at the seminary that got me out of the seminary. I think that place would have been really good for me to finish off my high schooling. And I really kind of looked forward to studying Latin and doing things that you just don't do in a normal high school. As a matter of fact, those last few years in high school were kind of rough on me, in some ways. And there were some good experiences. I'm not going to say it was all bad, but, you know, I've never been to a high school reunion, for instance, and never will. Shouldn't say never, but who knows? Probably not. And along with that, it's like it was almost like a stunted growth. But once I hit that sophomore year and I got to play all these different games, several different games, and I did meet with people like that. And again, I got my best friend from the seminary. Absolutely was worth it by itself. Great guy. But that really helped a lot. And had I started at that level, had I started with, say, in a family that played, all of a sudden it was, you know, have it there in front of me so that I could have engaged with it at any time. Seems like a lot of wasted years between when I was 8 years old, first finding that D&D box set, all the way up until my, again, pretty much my sophomore year, my freshman year of high school. So, yeah, I wish it could have been a little bit smoother that way, my earliest years, but it wasn't the way it was, and that's just the way it goes. So, I also kind of wish, this is much less, because I'm grateful for what I had, but those first games, again, were very much the old school style. And my personal tastes are more towards the narrative style. So I think if I'd have been developing my styles along those lines a little bit earlier, I might, you know, even now change my perspective a bit. But for what it's worth, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. Getting to those narrative games down the road changed me and changed my style. But I can absolutely live with that. It just feels like, again, some of that time was wasted. A lot of those energies that I put into things, a lot of those went into video games. So, you know, games like Final Fantasy, and, you know, those are those baby's first steps at role-playing games. Yeah, kind of worked for me. In the computer lab, playing games like Emon. Oh, that was a fun game. But that was another example of turning that desire to play those kind of games and loving fantasy into something that I could experience. Oh gosh. One of these days I'm going to have to go back and look at some of those games that I really used to love. Of course I'd lose all my audience, because anybody who's younger, what's an Apple IIe computer? At its time, it was one of the finest gaming computers you could get. It was also way out of my budget. I'm glad I had a friend who had one. You know, stuff like that. So that's my answer to the question. This is a short one, but yeah, that's what I would change. So I down the road, there are things I would definitely have changed too. I've made mistakes. I have scars. But as far as learning role-playing games, I got lucky with a nice group to start with, and then when I went to the seminary, I really got in with some good people. So that's about all I've got for that. So thanks for joining me. If you have your own stories and you like to share them, the comments below always welcome. If you feel like making a post or a video, absolutely. If you want to go to RPGaDay and get the list of questions so you can do this too, feel free. The more the merrier. It just makes the gaming community better when we honestly and clearly talk about these kind of things. Again, if you want to contact me or anything of the nature, my Dungeon Tutor Facebook group, the comments here, or send a message to my alter ego Omnisci on Facebook, feel free. And I'll see you in the next video, hopefully. Thanks for joining me for this. And until next time, I am Rob the Dungeon Tutor, or Omnisci, and I'll see you in the next video. Till then, farewell.